Javier's
Well, I
face
feel like
has
we should
something
start
to
with
say.
the names. Like
Terry and Steve.
Benedict. Like
there you go.
that's
A
intimidating.
name
And
to
then
fear.
yeah, and then Steve stole my money.
Welcome back to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. I'm your host, JJ Crowder, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Mattson Heiner,
Better red than dead.
Javier Ortiz,
What's up, nerds?
and Ian Anderson.
Some shit.
This is our arbitration series where we compare two similar movies and decide who did it better. The two movies in question today are on the ensemble heist remakes of the early 2000s, Ocean's 11 and The Italian Job. We're going to be comparing these movies using the following topics: the crews, the complexity of the heist, and the villains. So after our discussion, we will rate each movie 1 to 5 and discuss the rewatchability of each one. Let's get started. So let's talk about each movie first. Ocean's 11 was released in 2001. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by Ted Griffin. Danny Ocean and his 10 accomplices plan to rob 3 Las Vegas casinos owned by Terry Benedict simultaneously. And The Italian Job was released in 2003. It was directed by F. Gary Gray and written by Donna and Wayne Powers. And after being portrayed and left for dead in Italy, Charlie Croker and his team planned an elaborate gold heist against their former ally. So let's jump right in, guys. Let's talk about the crews in this movie. Quite the casts. So I'll go through them really quickly. We do have, in Ocean's 11, we have George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Bernie Mac, Casey Affleck, Scott Conn, Julia Roberts, Carl Reiner, Matt Damon. Finally, we have Andy Garcia as Terry Benedict, the villain. Switching over to The Italian Job, we have Mark Wahlberg, Charlize Theron, Donald Sutherland, Jason Statham, Seth Green, Yassine Bey, otherwise known as Mos Def, Edward Norton as the villain. And those are our big casts. And the crews, subsequent crews.
What about Sean Fanning?
Well, yeah,
As
he
himself.
does as himself, that nobody knew it was actually him unless you're deep cutting in that shit. Yeah, it was pretty good. It's a pretty good cameo there. All right, so let's talk about these crews. I want to hear what you guys think. Who had the better crew?
I think I was more attached to the Italian Job crew.
Why is that?
I liked that they went into their backstories. I don't know why, but I feel like that made me more attached to them. Like I loved seeing Left Ear blow up a toilet bowl. And like Jason Statham or Handsome Rob's little highway chase adventure. Whereas the others, they just kind of pop up. You're like, oh, okay, here's another one.
Because they need no introduction.
They need no. Well, you kind of get it. You kind of get it as they go. I feel like what I liked better about Ocean's 11 is they drop you into the world a lot better of like heists. Because they're like naming off all these. We need to pull like a Johnny Doodad or a couple
like
of
Mary Daisy.
All these random names.
I felt like the Italian Job crew was kind of a cheap knockoff of the Fast and Furious crew. Like, it just had that same feel to me. And
well, directed by the same man.
Yeah, acted by half the same actors. I don't know. Just like, if I wanted to see this crew, I'd just go watch one of the 9 movies that Fast and Furious has made.
So far.
Yeah. No sign of stopping.
I don't know. Seth Green making fun of Handsome Rob. Like Lyle, when he's in the car and he's talking to Becky and he's sitting there doing the gravelly British accent and he's like, hello, my name's Handsome Rob. What's your name? Becky. That whole scene, I just sit and giggle. And it was all ad-libbed. That whole scene was ad-libbed.
I felt like Seth Green was the worst part of this movie.
Really?
He was such an annoying little redheaded prick.
We can't be friends anymore.
Ah, dude.
Oh,
I'm not saying all redheads
Hold up. Audience, just so you know, I am a redhead and I take vast offense to this. That's why I start my podcast off with better red than dead. But that being said, I think he was an annoying weasel.
He was. Like, the part where him and Jason Statham are driving that boat in Venice and they're being chased and the bad guy pulls out a gun and Seth Green is like, like he just gasped with like wide eyes. I was like, dear God, is that how we're starting this movie? I hated that character from that moment on.
All right, and that's where I kind of want to segue into going back to the crew. Ocean's 11 had swag swag throughout. And the reason I bring that, I mean, just the interaction between Mr. Ocean and Rusty, Brad Pitt's character. One of the things I love about it, what they do is, Ian kind of said it best, is they go through exploring the crew and who they're going to bring on, and they kind of drop you into each character and what they were doing in the past and why they'd be a fit for the crew. And I just love how they do it, and each character brings something to the table. I also have to shout out to I think there are two Mormon brothers. I just love how each of them has a distinct personality. And just the aura of Vegas. It's just hard to pass up and where that crew sits and what these people have been doing. So the swag, man. Ocean's 11 for me, without a doubt.
Hey, speaking of the Mormon twins, the cameo of the Rocky Mountain Raceway.
Yeah,
Right. They're
awesome.
racing down the quarter mile strip with the remote control truck. It's pretty funny when he runs it over. I do love
that part.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But speaking of those two, let's just talk about this real quick because I had a note. Here in Vegas, there's cameras everywhere. There's security everywhere. And supposedly these are the three most security-based casinos on the strip at the time. And those sons of bitches were in this casino over and over
in like 9 different costumes.
and over. They're leaving clothes in the elevator. Come on now. Nobody notices these two guys. They don't blend in.
And they always travel together.
Scott Conn sticks out like a sore thumb.
All right, don't even get me started. You want to talk? If we're talking about inauthenticity of both of these movies, Italian Job, Mr. Napster, who fell asleep and his roommate stole it. Who knows if that's actually true? He hacks into the LA's traffic system and nothing happens for like forever. Like, oh, we're just gonna run. No way. Absolutely no way.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's no believability to either of these movies. The reality is not there.
Oh, don't even get me started. The explosive at the beginning of Italian Job where they blow the safe through the floors. Yeah, and it just conveniently took out the whole floor. No pieces of wood were blocking that safe from falling down, let alone when it hit the boat, that the boat just would have like blown up with the amount of weight.
No,
yeah.
it didn't hit the boat.
Didn't hit the boat.
That was the point.
No, it hit the water. They pulled it out.
They got you.
It was underneath
They
the
got-
water.
Oh my gosh.
Where
Well,
were you, man?
where was I? I probably walked around the corner to grab something to eat because I was bored with the way the movie started.
See, and that's so funny. It's such a differing opinion because I feel like the Italian Job has one of the better openings of most heist movies.
It was a
agree with
cool
that.
opening.
Yeah, that whole initial scene, that heist scene, I really enjoy the flow of that. It starts you in really quick, action packed. But yeah, I mean, it goes downhill after that.
And they're professionals, Mattson. They painted explosives. They didn't just like throw C4 on the ceiling. It was painted gently.
Gently.
So it blew up.
Crucial
gently.
adjective. I feel like I like both crews, but just for different reasons.
I agree with that.
Yeah, like I didn't dislike one or like one more than the other, but they're very different crews.
I don't know. If you put George Clooney, Matt Damon, and Brad Pitt on one side, and you put Jason Statham, Seth Green, like the only good part of the Italian Job was Furiosa. What was her name? What's her real name?
Oh, Charlize Theron?
Yeah.
Who hasn't
Hey,
aged?
whoa. Let's talk though. Donald Sutherland is the man, and I was so sad when he gets killed at the beginning. The old man at the beginning,
But
John.
he died.
I know, but he's so. Donald Sutherland is probably one of the greatest actors.
Yeah, if you'd stayed
the
around
last
for the
two
movie, but
generations.
even him, he probably read this. He's like, "Oh no, you're gonna have to kill me right off the bat."
Could be. No, they just needed someone that everybody liked to get you the emotional tie-in to the movie. But no, I agree. I mean, overall, I think both crews come with their interesting parts, right? Like, Charlize Theron does
interesting.
steal.
One's good, and the other one's not. Like, super interesting to me.
Come on, they both pull off the heist.
That's what they do in Hollywood.
I will say that when it comes to thinking on your toes, the Italian Job are much better. Because that crew had so many things go wrong throughout their heist because they plan it out one way.
Yeah.
Then the party gets in the way, and then the changing of the safe gets in the way, and then the Russian mob guys get in the way. How do we
No,
always do
Ukrainian.
movies? Sorry, Ukrainian.
Come on,
Ukrainian.
My bad.
Gosh, man.
It's going to be knocking on my door later
Don't mess
tonight.
with mother effing Ukrainian.
Yes,
Yes.
it's in the movie.
So that's the crew and the actors. Oh, before we go, though, I have to say, I miss Bernie Mac.
Who the hell is Bernie Mac?
What?
Are you serious?
Ramon.
May he rest in peace.
Oh, he did?
Dude, he
Yeah,
has one of the
he
best
died
scenes in
years
Oceans.
ago.
He died. Dude, just rest in peace again. But the scene where he's shaking
Yeah, when
the
he's shaking
car
the card in his
salesman's
hand.
hand, and he's talking about moisturizer, and gets him by the end to knock the price of the van down by like $3,000, and the two Mormon kids are like bouncing up and down the suspension. Love him for that. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I miss Bernie Mac. He's so funny. The next portion, let's talk about the heists, the cleverness or the overall intricacies of these heists.
I would give that to Ocean's 11 because the first time I watched this years ago, I did not get what happened. So I think that was a lot more
Pulled
intricate.
one over on
Yeah,
Javier.
they got me for sure.
I definitely agree with that because I watched Ocean's 11 and even having seen it, it's still, I have to pay attention during the end and the big reveal. Whereas Italian Job, you're kind of just led along the way of like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And then something goes wrong. Okay, well, now we're going to do this. And so you're just playing catch up the whole time. Whereas Ocean's 11, I feel like there's this big reveal at the end that's kind of exciting.
One of my problems with the Ocean's 11, or sorry, not Ocean's 11, but Italian Job is the fact that they were planning on driving these cars through the dude's house.
I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, I really would have too.
And I mean, I realize that that's pretty intricate, but I'm like, what happens when you, like, how are you going to turn these cars around? Because you got to get the back.
Oh
Are you going to drive?
I hadn't thought about that.
And you're not going to drive a Mini out of the... Look, there's shows... In fact, I was laughing because I was listening to someone talk about Twister earlier. You know, there's a part where they drive the truck through the house that's rolling across the road.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, look, I've built outbuildings and I've helped frame houses before in my life. You're not driving a truck or a car, especially not a Mini, through a house without it coming out going, what the hell just happened? And still being able to drive, let alone with 2,600 pounds in the back of it. I laughed. So, yeah, they got that whole thing mapped out on the computer where she's screaming
like the
through the house.
simulation.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay.
I love how the simulation, it turns a corner,
Yeah.
like in this hallway. I was like, wait a second.
It's good stuff.
That would never happen.
Yeah. Ian, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like halfway through Italian Job, it turned into a Mini Cooper commercial.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was definitely a knock on their heist because I felt like they were trying to get my money. You know what I'm saying?
I'm pretty sure Mini Cooper, they had to have made some decent money off of that from sales after.
Probably.
I'm sure they paid decent money to have it in that.
Well, here's the thing, though, is it was in the original. Because these are both remakes. And the original one, the original Italian Job had Minis. I love the looks that I'm getting.
Didn't even know they were back then.
These are remakes? Yeah. So the
made these
Italian Job,
twice.
the original Italian Job was in 1969, and they used Minis.
Well, it had Michael Caine, right?
Yeah, Michael Caine was
Oh.
Charlie Croker.
I know things.
Well done, well done. And then Ocean's 11 was in 1960 with the Rat Pack.
Didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, Ocean's 11. The Rat Pack. It's actually pretty decent to watch.
So I want to say something, just going back to, we're talking about the cleverness of the heist. I think what Oceans did very well is, as Italian Job, each member had a purpose. I just think Oceans presented it so much better, and maybe it's because the team was bigger, but that added to the intricacy of the heist because you had the small acrobatic dude that if he didn't do his job, they weren't getting the money. Basher, if he didn't cause that EMP to explode, and then if the Mormon brothers didn't drive the van with their remote control car, and I mean, the list goes on. But I thought each of them played their part just in a so much more grander and, again, swaggish level that it left me just enjoying watching it happen more.
That is true because in Italian Job, you had that one dude who's in charge of demolitions. And in the original plan, he had to blow up a fence. Like, that was his contribution to this heist. I'm like, and this guy gets like a fifth of the profits for dropping an outer. That's crazy to me.
Could I also say, but remember the guy that boosted the minis? And all Mark Wahlberg, all they offered him $10,000.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what is this?
It's like, don't get cheap on me, Dotson.
Let's talk about the cleverness of the heist. And I will say that I do give that to Ocean's 11 because of the fact that each one of the people in that crew, except for Yen, had to do more than one job. There was no... In the Italian Job, it was more or less... the planning, and then they each had their role, maybe two roles if they had to drive one of the minis out, right? But when it came to Ocean's 11, Yen is the only one, other than being involved in stealing the EMP, he's the only one that only had one job, besides, of course, the guy that financed the whole
I was
thing.
going to say, he paid money and
Ruben.
got more money.
Ruben had to put the money in, but other than that,
The investor.
the investor.
I did feel like the Ocean's 11 heist had higher stakes to it,
True.
like death. Whereas the Italian Job stakes were, we don't get gold. And that just seems like a really low stake for a heist.
It's almost kind of more of a revenge movie.
It really
was.
is. I actually have a note about that. It's actually kind of a lame revenge movie. Because that was what's her name's like motivating fact. Like he took my dad, so I'm going to take his gold.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what? Why didn't? If it's a revenge movie, just go in and kill him and take his gold.
I had that same thought. I was like, we go through all this intricacies, and if you guys are willing to do this, and I realized they set the standard at the beginning because John, right, the old man says, Donald Sutherland says, he just did this without any weapons.
Right, they're thieves, not murderers.
Exactly. You know what? He just killed this guy. He was your best friend. He was your mentor. He was your father. He was the leader of your crew for X amount of years. Go in and shoot this dude in the head. If you're willing to give him to the Ukrainians at the end, he's dead. Go in and kill this man, take the gold, and this movie's over in 15 minutes. So I will give you that. Yeah. But it wouldn't have been nearly as fun as watching the unrealistic jump out of the tunnels where all of the minis nosedive. Yeah. They have 2,700 pounds in the back. They're not going down nose first.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, wow, the physics involved here.
The back of this car weighs more than the whole car itself. So without the gold would have weighed more than these cars weigh.
Yeah.
Fully stocked.
Even more than usual. And they pulled
a bunch of crap out of them. Yeah.
Even more than usual because Wrench took out all the unnecessary engine parts. So it's like even lighter.
I laughed so hard.
How did the car work then? Unnecessary.
Well, he souped up the motor. So he did soup it out so it had more power. But the suspension on these cars, it's so unrealistic. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's not what we're here to talk about.
We're all mechanics in case you were wondering.
Like 30 minutes ago, before we went off on that tangent, Javier led us perfectly into the bad guys of this movie. Let's talk about these villains. So we have Edward Norton playing Steve in the
freaking sucks.
Steve.
Edward Norton playing Steve, and then you have Andy Garcia playing Terry Benedict. I want to hear. I got to hear what I can see. Javier's
well, I feel like we should start with the names. Like Terry Benedict. Like that's intimidating.
A name to fear.
Yeah, and then Steve stole my money.
Well, and you don't even know his real last name because he made up some Italian last name.
Yeah, like Franchetti or something.
Franchetti, but he's just Steve.
All right, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go on a rant here. I'll make it as quick as possible. Terry Benedict, what Ocean's 11 does really well is they start off, you know his name immediately, and they bring up the story about Rusty's talking to Matt Damon's character about not only did he get the money back from that one guy that tried to steal from him, he bankrupted his brother-in-law's tractor company. That's like a key phrase in it. And so you know right away, like Terry Benedict, if you steal from him, not only is he going to come after you, he's going to F everyone up that is connected to you.
Fields.
Yeah, whatever it may be. And then this guy, Steve, he doesn't even know what to do with the money. Two, then he just does a cop out. I'm going to send more guys with guns and take the money. And he's just kind of a weasel the whole time. He's trying to pick up a TV technician chick and take her out on a date. And I'm supposed to be scared of him? And he watches TV for fun? He's supposed to be doing things. He's like a regular Joe. Screw him, dude. That could have been me. I'm not scary.
This guy's got 35 million and he's watching The Bachelor.
Actually, to be honest, when he turns the TV on at first, it was the original Italian Job.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, Michael Caine was front and center on the screen, and then he switches it to something stupid, but that's what turned on.
Terry Benedict hires someone to beat up Mr. Ocean. It happens to be his friend, but at least the man will go below the belt and F you up, whereas Steve just gonna watch TV.
I got nothing to add to that. Yeah, I think Steve's kind of lame.
No contest.
Yeah, it's a pretty hands down. Well, let's just be honest. Andy Garcia played that out of his mind because the guy, even when he's pissed, just talks in the same exact flat voice. Yeah. And that kind of person scares me much more.
That's way scary.
Than a person that's yelling and screaming at me. Yeah, and Ian, that whole scene on the phone where he's like, okay, I complied with every request, right? Yes. I want you to comply with mine. Run and hide. It's terrifying. I'd be like, shit, I'm going to go run and hide now. Thanks for the 160 million. Yeah, so definitely no, hands down. Now, I do have a question. So I don't know if you guys know this. I was reading about it because I was doing some research, and I found out that Ed Norton did not want to do this movie.
Oh, really?
In fact, so he had a three movie deal with whatever movie it was, whatever studio it was. I can't even remember now. But he signed this with Cape Fear. So Cape Fear was his breakout role. He became really famous after Cape Fear. It's a great role. And then they were trying to get him to do a movie, and he kept saying no. He kept saying no, kept saying no. And then they finally forced him to do this movie. And he was difficult. There's a story that says at the end of it, nobody expected it to make as much money as it did, The Italian Job. And the producer, as a thank you to all the actors, and sent them gifts. And he sent his back with a note that said, give this to someone who likes you and who you like.
Wow.
What a douche.
What a dick move.
But do you think him not wanting to be there, because we just agreed Steve is a tool and he's a terrible villain, do you think that played into that at all?
I'll be honest, I haven't liked. I'm trying to find something maybe other than Fight Club
Yeah.
that I actually like Edward Norton in, and that's probably the only one I can think of.
I don't think he's a great actor.
No.
I like him in Fight Club, but
So
honestly, I like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. So
yeah,
Well, it's funny that you say that.
I just like Fight Club.
yeah, I just
Because Casey asked me last night, I was telling her that story, and she said, I think about Edward Norton, and he doesn't play any likable characters. And I laughed, and I'm like trying to think, because then we thought about Fight Club. I was like, was he likable in Fight Club? I'm like, not really. He's kind of a whiny little bitch.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then I watched, and then I thought about the Hulk, because he was the second Hulk, I guess, the first Marvel iteration. I was like, ooh, he wasn't even a likable Banner. Like, how do you make him unlikable?
Yeah.
And he was. And then I started thinking, I was like, I don't think there is an Ed Norton role where he as a character is likable, even when he's supposed to be.
It kind of sounds like Ed Norton isn't likable.
No, and I've read a lot where he's difficult. Like, that's why they switched him off of the Hulk, because he was a pain in the ass when it came to making that movie. So I just found that interesting.
That's so funny. I always assumed you had to be a good actor to be a pain in the ass to work with.
Well, if
Well-
you're always playing a villain, it kind of works out because it just shines through. You know?
Yeah.
That's fair.
And he acted well in American History X. He was really good in American History X. He was completely hateable throughout the whole movie, which he's supposed to be. He was a Nazi most of the movie, a skinhead most of the movie. But so I think he's a good actor. I just think he takes away from the role. Ocean's 11 wins that one as well.
Yeah, thanks for drawing the villains thing out a little bit, JJ, because
Gosh.
it was going pretty landslide.
It's pretty short.
One way.
But I wanted to talk about it because I'm not a huge fan of Ed Norton, even though a lot of people think he's really great. I don't love him in most things.
Yeah.
I want to say one of the things I wanted to bring to you guys up as well is, what are your most memorable quotes from either of these movies?
Oh, good question.
For me,
funny you say
for
that.
me
I was about to
especially,
go
I won't say it first, but I want to see what you guys have to say. But there's a few from Oceans, and that's probably why I love this movie. It's really quotable to me. But I want to hear what you guys have to say.
When they're in Ocean's 11, when they're at that mansion, at Ruben's mansion for the kickoff party, and one of the Mormon boys is talking to Saul, and he's like, "Do you visit Utah often? I think you would. I think you'd like Provo. I think you would do very well in Provo."
Very accurate.
That got me because,
Yeah.
for those of you who don't know, I am from Provo, and no one does well in Provo.
I think Saul would do
I
well in
think Saul
Provo.
would do very well in Provo. I love Saul.
I really liked the. I'm blanking on his name. He's like the technician with video cameras or security cameras, hacks into the system on Ocean's 11.
Oh, I don't
I'm
remember.
drawing
The
his
weird
blank.
dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of awkward.
Yeah.
What does he say? He says they'll be watching you. He's talking about once they get flagged in the casino. He says they'll be watching you like hawks with video cameras. He kind of butchered the quote there, but I loved it.
Oh, Townsend. You're talking about Townsend,
Yeah,
the computer guy.
There we go. Townsend.
He has some pretty funny. You know what's funny is I really like, there's a lot of quotables in Italian Job, like some funny one-liners.
Yeah.
So Mos Def is probably my favorite character in that whole show because he's just he can make any scene awkward but funny. and I like him in so many things. Like there's a lot of movies that we should watch some of Mos Def stuff. But he has a line when they're hanging from the underneath the road where they're going to blow up. And, and Charlie's messing with him and he's like, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "I'm about to put this pin in the detonator. And if the brass touches it, you and I will be the last people we ever see." And he's like, "Oh, take your time."
Take your time.
Then it pans way far back. He's like, "Charlie, I love you, man."
I also love his quote. It's probably the one I quote the most out of Italian Job, but I had a bad experience. I'm the one who's dead. Yeah, that's the funnest one to
Like,
quote
what
for me.
happened? I had a bet.
He also had another one where he's like, after they get the gold, he's all 27 million. And he's like, "Say it again. 27 million. Say it again. 27 million. It's great.
I wanted to say something. So, not so much a quote, but because I can't remember the exact words, but when Rusty and Mr. Ocean are going through who to put on the crew, when they are at the show where they're trying to find their acrobat, I love when they're like, it's like Mr. Ocean's like, "Well, that doesn't look very difficult," and then the character he flips from one pole to the other, and he's like, we got a grease man. We got a grease man. I love that part. And then the quotes that stick out to me is when Mr. Ocean is speaking to actor name escapes me, but Julie Roberts. And there's just like, there's 4 heavy hitters in a row. He says like, does he make you laugh? And she's like, doesn't make me cry. And then they talk about Monet and the other artist. And she's like, well, he's like, they killed themselves, and one was like a pedophile. So he's like, well, they also did art as well. And
so painted a case.
That's what exactly. Like they also perfect. So those ones I think are pretty funny. But to me, like Oceans just has so many that I could go through if I could have my brain remember them all.
From that same scene, Julie Roberts is like, all you do is steal and lie. It's like, oh, I don't do that anymore. She's like, steal? Lie. Definitely. I'm stealing right now, actually.
I love it when Saul loses his shit on Ocean because he's like calling him. He's like, can you do this, Saul? Yeah. And he's like, if you ask me that one more time, he goes, you will not wake up in the morning or something like that.
He's ready.
Yeah.
And he calls him Daniel, too.
Yeah, he calls him Daniel. Daniel, if you ask me that one more time.
Wake up the following morning.
That's what I love it.
Very quotable. Again, going back to Townsend, sorry, one more. When he's in the van with his FBI buddies that he's helping out, and he's like, don't touch that.
Oh, yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
Calm down, Radio Shack, or something like that. And he's like, do you see me grabbing the gun from your holster and waving it around? That's how I want to respond to more things like that.
I do. They have so another one from Saul. I love when he comes back after the whole doctor and him dying thing, and he's leaning over the couch and they see all the money. And he goes, "That is the sexiest thing I've ever seen." It's like this 80-year-old man, and that is the sexiest thing. I loved it.
It's fun to watch their faces in that scene when he says that too, because Basher has just got this goofy grin on his face.
When Rusty's going through with Matt Damon's character, and he's giving him all, like he's teaching him how to do this thing, and he's telling him, "Don't do that. Don't do this, whatever." And then he gets to the end and he's like, look, and under no circumstances ever will you ever do. And then someone calls his name and he's like, what? And then walks away without actually saying what he was never supposed to do. So let's do it. Let's jump right into our ratings. I was told I go last though, so I'm going to start this time. Actually, I just thought of another line before we do this because it's my favorite line in this whole movie. And I said it earlier, but we weren't recording. When they blow the safe and he walks in and Yen comes walking out of the rubble, where the fuck you been?
I had to pull that one out.
All right, so let's rate. I'll go first. This is kind of shocking, but as watching these last night, I don't love them the way I did when I watched them the first few times.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because they're both almost 20 years old and they just didn't hold up as well as I thought they did, but they're enjoyable to watch. But as far as a good movie, I'm going to give Ocean's 11, we'll start there. I give Ocean's 11 3.5.
Okay.
So let's go this way. Ian.
I'm falling in line with JJ. I think 3.5 is really good for Ocean's 11. I remember watching it the first time way back in the day and absolutely loving this movie. But kind of like you said, I don't know if it had to do with the comparison or the perspective watching it now, but it didn't grab me. I think the shock and awe of the reveal is kind of faded, and so it just doesn't grab you like it used to. So,
Mattson.
I'm going to give it a 4. I love Ocean's 11. It's a movie that I still actually watch quite often. I watch all the Ocean movies. I think I love the characters. I love the banter between them. I love that Rusty is predominantly eating in every scene in this movie. It's just something that I can put on in the background and turn back to and enjoy some laughs. I'm not saying it's a great movie, but for the amount of I've seen it and watch it, I'd give it a 4 for me.
Cool. Javier.
I'm going to give it a 4 as well. It's a fun heist movie. I really like the Oceans franchise on this one. I don't think it disappoints. I think it has a strong cast, good acting. It's got a fun story. Definitely rewatchable. I've seen it several times. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think a 4 is good. I think it survives the test of time.
All right, so let's then do The Italian Job. Again, I find both these movies fun to watch. They're entertaining, but for this one, I'm going to drop down to a 3. I give it a 3 overall. Again, it's another one that just doesn't hold up for me. It's not as fun as I remembered it. I was actually really excited to watch these movies. When we talked about it. And then I was watching them going, yeah. And I don't know if it's because we just did Knives Out. And Knives Out's one of those things that I know what's happening, but I still love that movie as much the first time as I have the 4th time I've watched it. Where this one, it's probably the 12th time I've watched them both. But they just didn't work for me this time as much as they used to. So 3 for Italian Job. Ian.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I struggled rating Italian Job. I feel like 2.5 is too low for it, but
3's too high.
3's too high. 2.8, nah, but I know we can't do that. So I'll go ahead and I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and go with a 3 because I know I've enjoyed it in the past. Watching it back to back with Oceans, though, I think kind of made me think of it much less. I didn't realize how much the villain in this one just drove me nuts, and not in like well, that's a good villain way, but in this is annoying to watch kind of way.
Steve sucks.
Steve
Matson.
Steve. I'm going to go with the 3 as well. A lot of the same reasons. I think there's some, I love Mark Wahlberg and Jason Statham fulfills his role. He's in a car for most of it. I think it's a fun story, and the villain sucks, and it's okay.
Yeah.
3's okay.
3's okay. Javier.
If this was 2005, I would have given it a 4. But since it's 2020, I'm going to have to give this like a 2.5. Especially compared to Ocean's 11. The acting annoyed me, especially by Seth Green. Like, I hope I never have to see that guy on screen ever again. And the heist was like okay, and the bad guy was not great. And anyway, yeah, compared to the 2, I think Italian Job is the worst one. And I think compared to most movies now, it's just not.
Actually, something I want to say that just came to my head is I just couldn't articulate it before. Ocean's 11 to me, it's something that feels more timeless, or if I come back to it, it's not so reliant upon the technology to perform the heist. So therefore, it's easier for me to just like the characters. But in the Italian Job, they're on antiquated like cell phones to TV screens to just some of the tech you see on the screens and all that. And for me, or like the TVs that Steve was watching that looked futuristic, like they were flat screens, but you could tell that stuff bothered me. Like I found myself noticing that a lot, and that's not the fault of the movie and shouldn't necessarily reflect my rating, but it brought me back. It felt the movie was old, where Oceans, I feel like I could just return to it and enjoy the heist.
So there you have it, guys. Both the movies sounding enjoyable, especially through the lens of nostalgia. Ocean 11, water drop randomly.
Sorry, I don't know where that came from.
It's okay. It'll be a nice little funny moment, I guess.
Yeah, JJ. Okay.
So Oceans takes it. We'll give the win to that one in this particular arbitration. We appreciate you listening to us. Hopefully you have a chance to go back and watch these movies. They are entertaining as all hell. So don't forget, check us out. You can find us on all of the social media platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are all at What's Our Verdict. You can go to our website at www.whatsourverdict.com. At this point, you can also check us out with our TV side. What's Our Verdict TV, Westworld, right in the midst of that. So find us, enjoy us. Please rate us on iTunes. We'd love to see some good ratings. Send us some feedback through our email, hosts@whatsourverdict.com. We'd love to hear from you. Suggestions for movies, we'd love that too. And keep an eye out through our social media for some fun and entertaining things. I know Matson's our social media guru. Matson, you want to share with us some of the things that they can expect to see and check out in our social media?
A little preemptive strike right here. I mean, we're working on a lot of things. I think some of what the crew and I are talking about is polling you guys about what you want to hear us review, the structure of our podcast, but also just going to be a lot better at letting you know what's going to be released, and the weeks that we have released something, just putting out some more fun facts maybe about the movie, some things that have been left unsaid that maybe you didn't know, to just help better educate you. And then when you go watch it, hopefully after listening to us, you have a lot of content we put out along with our podcast and can have a great viewing experience.
And if we can convince JJ, you can listen to all the things he edited out that I said, because that stuff is gold.
Yeah, so I do have a lot of outtakes that watch for. Send us an email. It'll have to be private. I'm not posting that anywhere public. But yeah, we definitely have some fun things to share. Good, nice outtakes. I've been saving them. Javier's an HR nightmare that works in HR.
I'm surprised Javier wants those out there.
It's because they are funny as all hell.
It's going to be your own demise.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys. Check us out. Come reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. And that's the verdict.
Bye-bye now.
Until next time.